I caught part of the NPR storyboard on the way up, and as a Democrat and Robert Kennedy, and why don't you share for the camera the story?
Well, the thing that's played on the radio is not the spicy part of the story, actually. I was at Notre Dame. I was in my second year. Robert Kennedy had entered the Indiana primary. I worked with Students for Kennedy, whatever it was called at that point. And I had, one of the things I had to do was file the petitions to be on the ballot for him for the Indiana primary in the counties going across the northern border of the state. And they all had to be done on the same day. So I had a car, which was part of it, and so all these crates of petitions were loaded into the trunk in the back seat of my car. And I don't know how this was arranged, but I was escorted by a state trooper from county seat to county seat going across the state. It took a whole day, and we could get it done within the office hours of each of these county seats. He was driving 95 miles an hour on the I-90 with his gumball flashing, and I'm behind, terrified at the speed, because I figured I wasn't driving, I'm aiming this vehicle. But we got it done. Well, then he was coming to campus, and I was asked, along with some other students, and as I said in the thing you heard, I think primarily because I had a suit and a car, to meet him at the airport and escort him to campus. And then escort him into the Steppen Center where he was going to speak, and escort him back out. And then, you know, we could leave. So, you know, I met him. Ethel Kennedy was with him. And you know, he was very nice, and she was lovely. Went around, said hello to all of us, because there were, like, I think there were 6 of us. So we had this motorcade following him, and he was riding in a big Lincoln Continental that was, you know, the one that were huge. They were a mile wide and 2 miles long, convertible. So we get to campus, and there were a lot of students in Steppen Center, but there were also a lot of, you know, people from town and all over. He went in, he spoke, we escorted him back out, and we're getting to the car, and he gets into the back seat of the this Lincoln Continental, and he is standing and, you know, waving, shaking hands and so forth. And we're standing around on either side of the car. Well, it's time to move, so the car starts to inch along, and we're walking along with it. And the one woman is determined to get a message, I guess, to him, and she is hanging on to him and walking, but she's got his hand and continues to walk. Well, the car starts to pick up, not go fast, but it gets to the point where you're not quite running, but you're certainly walking real fast. She's not letting go. Well, people in the car get concerned that he's going to get toppled out of the car. And if they, so in any event, I kind of lose track of exactly what happens, but ends up, I somehow disengage her from the senator, and I end up in the process, I end up on the trunk lid of the car. Well, she is not giving up, and she grabs on to me, specifically my pant leg, at which point the car starts to move, and something had to give, and it was my pants. at least one whole leg of my pants.
Oh, yeah.
Gone. Okay.
Oh my God.
And the car takes off. Well, the car's, I'm on the trunk lid of the car. They're worried about, they obviously can't stay on the trunk lid. This car is moving. So they pull me. So there I am in the back seat of the car. Robert Kennedy, Bob Greene, Ethel Kennedy, sitting in the back seat of this car. At which point, Ethel, with that lovely Boston accent, said, "Bobby, I heard you ask for people to give the shirt off their back, but I mean, this is going too far." I am embarrassed beyond words, okay? Trying to make myself look decent. And I said, "Can you just, can you just drop me off, because my car's, not that far away. I can just hop over there." No, you're going with us. So we take off. Now he is also, because this woman did some damage. He had on French cuffs. Well, that was gone. His suit had been messed up as well. Well, we're out, and we're in Indiana and the farm fields and so forth, and car stops before his next stop. They flip open the thing. They pull out for him a new shirt, new French, new cufflinks, and a new jacket. And I'm sitting in the back seat saying, "Got a pair of pants back there?" So his next stop was a nursing home. So I said, "I'm just going to stay in the car." No, you're coming in with us. Okay. So I walk up the front walk of this nursing home, up some steps in there. I'm standing, trying to be inconspicuous, as one can with only half a pair of pants on. And he does his thing, and we're then coming to leave and go. They then drop me off to go get my car. And he went on, and he went from there to Indianapolis. And when he arrived in Indianapolis, they told him that Martin Luther King had been murdered, because it was the same day.
Bobby flew to Indianapolis for a campaign speech in a black neighborhood. En route, a reporter had told him that Martin Luther King had been murdered.
I watched the news that night in South Bend to see what the coverage is like. There's a camera showing him on campus, certainly, but showing him going into the nursing home with me, and there's a black band across the bottom of the screen. 2 weeks later, I get we had a message board at school. Bob Greene, please report to the dean's office. Not unusual, so I don't think much of it. So I go up to the dean's office, and they said, "Here's a mail for you from Hickory Hill, McLean, Virginia." And in it is a note and a check for $100 for a new suit.
No kidding.
I often wish I had saved that check, but since I was going to come back and work for the firm, and I think that was the only suit I owned, I had to, but $100 in 1968 bought a very nice suit.
Sure, my God.
Yeah.
What a great story. Hickory Hill, by the way, was the home of Robert Jackson.
I know. I know.
Had to just put that in for the camera. When he dies, what did that mean to you?
I was actually watching the returns of the California primary. And it was live coverage. He spoke from the stage of the Ambassador Hotel, proclaiming victory, indicating where things are going. He left the stage, and before the cameras turned off, there was a commotion, and they didn't show it, but they indicated he'd been shot, and that they died. Because of my involvement, I received invitation, or I guess what you call it. If I wanted to go down to New York City, I wouldn't be able to go to the funeral in St. Patrick's Cathedral, but I would be able to visit. And that was an invitation that went out to apparently to thousands of people, because I left work and drove to New York City with a friend, because I was working at the firm at that point, my first summer. And I drove, we arrived like at 11 o'clock at night. And the thing that was stunning was the total silence. There was a huge line. It went for blocks and blocks, and it wove through up and down the side streets of Manhattan off of Fifth Avenue. And people were not talking. If they were saying anything, they were whispering. And it was, it was kind of stunning. And it took a couple of hours to actually get to the casket and pay respects, and then, afterwards I drove back home. I think it was a Friday, because I didn't have to go to work the next day. And then I watched the funeral on television, and everything was kind of as you expected until they put his casket on the train to Washington to be buried next to his brother in Arlington. And they had cameras apparently on the train, because it just showed the people lining the tracks, waving flags, kneeling and praying. So it delayed the train so much that they didn't arrive until it was dark. Excuse me. And I remember they came across was it the 14th Street Bridge that faces? Funeral cortege stopped at Lincoln Memorial because there was a African American choir. And they stopped and they belted out the Battle Hymn of the Republic, which was, the commentator said it was his favorite hymn. And then proceeded on to Arlington for the burial.